So there was this conversation I was following today on Facebook on our mutual friend Aaron's page, and it really cracked me up because Aaron was saying, I hate these knee-jerk reactions. When a movie bombs, everyone says, well, this is exactly what's wrong with Hollywood. This is going to spell the end of Hollywood. They make it an apocalyptic thing. And no one thing is going to destroy Hollywood necessarily as we know it today, but that's what some writers, I guess, are writing about Lone Ranger. And so in the comment section, somebody said, yeah, just like they did with Cimino's Heaven's Gate. And so these two went back and forth, not Aaron, but two of Aaron's friends were going back and forth, and one was praising Heaven's Gate as a big-time masterpiece, and the other was saying, no, it might be visually splendid, but it's messy, it's sloppy, it's blah, 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 it's egocentric and all this kind of stuff. And so they're arguing back and forth on these 2 points, and the guy that was arguing in favor of Heaven's Gate said, it's a brilliant indictment of Reagan policy in Central America, or something to that effect. And the guy responded, and he said, doofus, Reagan wasn't even elected president.
If that's the defense, it's a horrible
I love that, though. I love that, because there was a guy trying to come off as an intellectual, and he just got slammed down.
But it's not even, God, that's really, that's bad. But let's talk about the Lone Ranger, because Aaron's absolutely right. When we get, everyone wants to say when there's one bad film or something, it's a problem. No, how do we say this? If you took the first 90 minutes of the Lone Ranger out, you might actually have a decent movie. If you took the first 90 minutes, and there's still another hour to go.
So you still have another hour and 9 minutes.
That hour is actually good. The problem with the film is Johnny Depp may be the major problem with the film. And that's a sad, sad thing to say, but it's become obvious with the exception of the Rum Diary and maybe Rango. Johnny Depp, something's happened.
I think it might be over for Johnny Depp in some way.
I don't know if it's over, but I think
not over. But
his performance.
This big Johnny Depp movie, the big Johnny Depp movie, like the $500 million Johnny Depp movie, I think those might be over.
It could be, because here's the thing: it's Johnny Depp is a problem, but you have this great performance by Armie Hammer in the background, and he's the title character, but they decided to make Tonto.
Well, that was always absurd.
Yeah, it was, but here's the thing. His Tonto is really basically just like a variation of Jack Sparrow, and even more disturbingly is a variation of a character from the Mad Max Beyond Thunderdome film, which it seems that the film really owes its very existence to, as Mad Max Beyond Thunderdome. The climax of that movie with the train and everything, you can't help but, wow, I've seen this before. It's in Mad Max of all things. It's a very odd film. Very
well, here
odd.
are my thoughts. This is what makes the Lone Ranger failure, because the Lone Ranger is this massively budgeted, well over $200 million movie that grossed in the 5-day holiday weekend $48 million for a very distant second place.
Mm-hmm.
But here's my thoughts on it. It's so ironic because a couple of weeks ago when Spielberg and Lucas did that talk and they talked about the future of movies, and Spielberg made a statement that it'll take about 5 or 6 of these huge budgeted movies to completely tank, and then we'll start to see a change in Hollywood. A feeling that Gore Verbinski actually came out and agreed with. And here's Gore Verbinski responsible for one of those flops, which first is kind of ironic.
It is.
Secondly, we all knew. We've been saying it. Who cares about the Lone Ranger? It was just an ill-conceived idea for a 200-plus budgeted movie.
I don't know where you get the idea. Who would think that? Why would you? It's the same problem that they had with John Carter. Why would you spend this kind of money on a property that the movie-going public, the people that purchase tickets, really don't have any interest in seeing?
The audience for the Lone Ranger is dead. They've all just...
Well, I want to address that too, because there's even we talk about this prime demographic. What is it? 14 to what is the age demographic? 14 to what? 34 or something?
25 or something.
25.
Yeah, I mean 18 to 24 or something.
Bad thing to these kids. They're not all going to the movies. But there's even a bigger marketing thing. My mom and I went to see the Terrence Stamp movie, Unfinished Song, last weekend, which actually isn't bad for this old British people genre, which we'll just call it that. But it's a horrible genre. My mom said this. She goes, this is just as bad. These are the way these films are marketed to us, just as bad as the teenage movies that are marketed. She said this is reprehensible. We only went to see it because I wanted to see General Zod sing. I won't lie to you. He's the only because I refused to see Quartet.
Do you put?
Oh God, no!
Quartet
I refuse to see it. If there was nothing else saying, and I was like, no, we will not see Quartet. This looks dreadful.
Best Exotic Marigold Hotel, same thing.
That I saw, unfortunately, and that everyone dies in that movie, and I wanted to die during that movie. I really wanted. I wish someone would have handed me a revolver or something. I would have blown my brains out. But these films are just as bad as the ones aimed towards the kids because you are saying. And it's not just Hollywood, obviously. This is really in Britain, that you were saying, oh, you're old, you're close to death, this is what we're going to do for you. No, most people aren't. There are people very active. They want to see something, the irony is they want to see something like Jack Reacher or Skyfall, to be quite honest with you. They really don't want to see, these horrible movies that are supposed to make you feel good, which are really quite dreadful, to be honest with you.
Well, they're all kind of the same too, aren't they? They're all kind of hitting those same notes of like hope and rejuvenation.
But what about Steven Soderbergh? Steven Soderbergh decided I'm going to take Terrence Stamp, I'm going to put him in something that's so awesome, the limey. I'm going to make something that from a sort of like adapt this from his old Ken Loach movie of all things, Poor Cow. I'm going to make something really incredible. The British do actually sometimes do this well, Sexy Beast or something like that. But, these films, this whole genre, it's, I guess, does it start with Waking Ned Devine or does it start before that? I mean,
I think it might have started a little bit before that.
They're really god awful if you really think about it.
But there is a documentary that I really like from a few years back where this singing group of old senior citizens, and they go to prisons to sing to the inmates.
That was good. I'll give you that, yes.
That was a doc, though.
Was that a British thing? It was American?
No, it was American.
No, it was American. It was American. Young at Heart or something, I think it was called.
Yes.
Young
exactly
at Heart. That's what it was. Yeah.
But that was real. I could see that was real life. But I don't know. It just seems like towards the beginning of life and at the end of life, they've decided to really go for the lowest common denominator.
Yeah.
Well, I think these movies are kind of like most of them are somewhat minor indie hits, though. I mean, the old people do go out to see them. I mean, I have a friend that has a one screen theater up in Maine, and which he owns, and most of his clientele is old people. So he's always reaching out to me, trying to get me to let him know if there's anything coming up that would appeal to that crowd. And he tries to play younger stuff for them, but the only things that they really respond to are the movies with the old people in them, or like costume dramas. Like British
I can see that,
dramas
but it just seems
like
it seems like if we're living longer, these films aren't helping things. I'm sorry.
Well, I mean, like I said, he tries to like put in like an action movie every once in a while, but the oldsters don't come out to it.
Going back to The Lone Ranger, though, you know what other film The Lone Ranger owes a lot to? the Russell Crowe Robin Hood, which is just as dreadful. I mean, God, can you imagine a double feature? Can you imagine a double feature of Robin Hood with Russell Crowe and the Lone Ranger on AMC on a Sunday afternoon next year? I mean, first of all, you're already talking about with the commercials, 8 hours. 8 hours of really, truly horrific filmmaking.
You know, I was watching TV yesterday, and I happened upon a Johnny Depp movie, which was The Ninth Gate, the Polanski movie. And so
great soundtrack.
Johnny Depp has always been beloved within circles for his eccentricity, and then using that same eccentricity, he became like this megastar with the Pirates movies. So you can't exactly say that he sold out because his approach
no, not at all.
His approach remained the same. I think people might be just getting tired of the eccentric Johnny Depp putting on another.
Here,
elaborate,
let me throw something else in that. The last Pirates movie, though, while it did very well, because there'll be 2 more, I think, at least 1 more. The thing was, the great thing about I'm not a big fan of the Pirates movies, and I actually think the Lone Ranger has the same pacing issues that the Pirates movies have, if you want to know the honest truth. A lot of the same issues that you would have editing and pacing-wise are definitely there in the Lone Ranger. He was a supporting character for at least the first 3 movies. He was not the main character. You had Keira Knightley, you had Orlando Bloom, you had a lot of different characters, a lot of storylines. Once you get to the 4th Pirates movie, the burden falls on him, and it takes its toll. And I think by making Tonto the main character in the Lone Ranger, well, I'm sure at some point it must have seemed like a genius idea. When executed, it's god-awful.
I don't know who ever thought it would be a genius idea. It just doesn't make any sense to me.
Whoever was there in that development meeting or the pitch meeting, look, he says at least 1/8 of the Native American. We can make it. I don't know.
I'm sure it's Bruckheimer all the way.
Like you read, I read on Badass Digest Darren Faraci's interview with Bruckheimer, and you know the day before that, Faraci had reviewed the movie and really panned it, and I can't say I disagree with any of it. But this interview I actually think was actually done before he had seen the movie. And Bruckheimer just thought, well, we got to update the film. We can't release it. We can't make the movie that the serial or the radio show is based on. We can't do that. No one will buy it if they will do this. And while that's all fine and dandy and everything, the Lone Ranger is really a secondary character for a good chunk of the movie. I don't care who you are. That's not. Yeah. It is like in Robin Hood. Yeah. But when he does become the Lone Ranger, the movie's actually very exciting. But I think you've burned up any goodwill you have with your audience. No one cares.
Frankly, I'm glad that I hope that it dies a miserable death and it doesn't ever darken any movie screens out there ever again. Because the Lone Ranger, nobody's interested. Nobody's interested in that property. If this didn't tell you, if Legend of Lone Ranger back in 81 or 82 didn't tell you, then this should definitely tell you.
Yeah,
nobody's
that was
interested in it.
I remember that issue of the Cheerios box, on the back of the Cheerios box. I never saw it, but I remember there was a huge push, at least via cereal, and no one cared about it back then. That's what I was so surprised. And a couple of years ago, we're going to do the Lone Ranger. Really? I mean, who cares?
Well, hopefully it'll just put a nail in the coffin. It's not doing well overseas either. It's only made $30 million overseas, so that's not looking too good for that movie.
But the film has some other bad things going for it. So Hans Zimmer, who I do like,
going for it,
has some other bad things. Hans Zimmer does the score, and I swear I love Hans Zimmer when he did the Batman music and the Inception music. But my God, you're listening to the score, you're just like, why not just get Ennio Morricone? Really? That's what you're going for. Tonto's theme is the whole entire Jason Robards motif in Once Upon a Time in the West, and you really just keep expecting to see Jason Robards every time the music comes on. Cheyenne, you keep expecting to see him.
It's even with the harmonica?
No harmonica, but Jason Robards' theme is a little bit different, a little bit different. But then the whole music, I mean, it all sounds like Once Upon a Time in the West. There's and I'm just like, Hans, baby, you're really original. This is what you're doing. You guys couldn't just say, Mr. Morricone, can we just use your score from Once Upon a Time in the West? I mean, oh my God, there's that, and it's just there's so much the film. I think, with the exception of, I guess, Django, westerns in this country are still dead. We've had some great westerns made. One in Australia, The Proposition, or the one in this, The Assassination of Jesse James. But with the exception of Django, none of them have really, had a commercial footing. I don't understand what meeting this took place that someone said this would be a good idea.
Well, I think they just live in a bubble, and they think, well, first of all, I think that they have very little respect for the audience. So they think that anything that they shit out, the audience is going to, rush to go and see.
Mm-hmm.
So that means that they don't have a lot of respect for the audience. They're not really thinking about the audience.
Right.
They're
not. They're not.
They're just thinking about the deal. And keeping the wheels of work greased, and they just expect everybody to go out and run out and see everything, and that's just not going to happen.
Right.
I think that it's healthy. I think that it's healthy for the business to have big, huge bombs like this every once in a while, because it's the only way
like a forest fire
that we're gonna move forward.
Mm-hmm.
And
well,
look
that's
for other
true.
things.
I agree with you there. I mean, and we've had a lot
it's
of
healthy.
I mean, we had the expected bomb of After Earth, and then there's the bomb of...
Tell that to Disney, who's going to lose like $150 million on the Lone Ranger.
But they'll make it back. They're going to make it back.
They'll just write it off of their taxes. They don't pay any taxes anyway.
But this is two big duds for them. This is two enormous duds, though, John Carter and the Lone Ranger, in the span of a year and a half.
They're sitting on $1 trillion anyway. They've got another $1 trillion over in the back room in some.
I'm definitely not crying for them because they have.
Yeah, I'm not really worried that Bob Iger is going to be on the street with his children. Yeah. I mean, I'm not really worried about that.
I don't feel sorry for anybody in all of this.
I mean, they're the
it was a bad idea.